man, haven't we had a great time? I mean, we still have two very significant things that we feel on our heart that we're going to be doing at the close of our time together. Just a few minutes, I'll have the worship team come back up, and we're going to pray together. We're going to be praying for our leaders, and be praying to be sending churches, praying for those that have already planted, and praying for those that maybe are not here but going to be planting a church. I know at our conference, we a lot of times we won't have the church planters there because they're getting ready to plant a church, or they're financially, they can't be gone a second because they're back home, and so. But we're going to be doing those moments, and then we're also going to receive an offering, which so much of church planting, it cannot be done without the resources. The existing churches are resourcing the new churches. It's just kind of how that works. And, and we're going to gather together and we're going to do that. So that's very significant. I don't know of a single thing that my wife and I, Delyn, have invested in and have consistently give to that has a greater return than that of starting new churches. It's just something that's been a value of our hearts since we've been a part of that. And we launched our church many, many years ago and now continue to be that. When ARC started, it was an idea, it was a dream, just like many of your churches or many of the things that you do in your networks or in your reach to people. And just a few people got together. And one of the things we needed was finances. We wanted to launch two churches, and we had an existing church. And Greg Surratt, who pastors Seacoast Church, his son now pastors that, had an existing church. And so his church was larger than ours, so he gave the initial seed of $100,000, and we gave an initial seed of $50,000. And we said, let's start ARC with that. So ARC was started with $150,000 US. And when I look back on that investment and that idea of saying, let's do something like that. Let's step out in faith. Let's plant that seed. Let's see what God will do if we just, give him all the glory. Because how many knows it's amazing what God will do if nobody cares who gets the credit other than Jesus Christ. And so let's just do it all for him. And in those moments, I look back now with that initial gift, and a few others came together that first year. People like Rob Ketterling, people like Joe Champion, men like John and Leslie Siebling, and others that came together who said, yeah, let's go ahead and sow into that in those early days. And that has turned into, over the last 21 years, $65 million that have been given to church planting, to all these church plants. Come on, you ought to clap your hands for that. And that's how much ARC has given into church planting around the U.S., of course, globally, how we're a part of those things also. And then all the other ways that we've sown into, the different people that we've just blessed, and the different people that we've just come alongside of. So it's amazing what can happen when we come together. So our offering, and as we receive our offering, it'll be an all-in offering. And we'll be a part of that. But wasn't this morning good? I about yielded my time to Maz one more time. I almost said, hey, why don't you take the last session? Can we clap our hands again? That was fabulous. That's one of those go back and listen to. And it also, it's one of those things like, can I get your details so that you can come and teach our team? And just in case I need a little help myself, that's one of those kind of connections right there. It's extraordinary, and I always enjoy the panel. And I've got to echo many of you that have thanked those that have communicated, and how great that they've led. Thank you, Paul, and thank you so much for all that y'all have done. Marinette, just incredible the way you lead, and of course, our host, just fabulous. And what a great message last night. I took so many notes. I sent a couple of your thoughts to some friends trying to act like they were mine, but then they said, oh no, you heard Pastor Chris last night. Those are not your thoughts. Those are not your thoughts. They were that good. Chris and Pindy, thank you so much, Pastor. We honor you and we're grateful. I just feel like God's put his hand on us. I really do. And I don't know if I've ever been to a gathering or a conference like this where I've been filled up with so much faith. It's like just pure faith fuel for what God is going to do. And Delyn and I sense that, and I can't wait to be back with you. And we're going to head to George, which I believe is one of the greatest places on the planet. And so we'll be heading down there tomorrow, and then we're going to spend some other days in South Africa with Dan, a friend of mine who does something called Children's Cup. But our goal and our prayer, and I was praying for you again this afternoon, is that you leave here with a green light. And a light that's on go. not a caution light, not a red light, but a green light. You're on go. Okay, Lord, what do you want me to do? How do you want me to do? And one of the things that we've got to make sure that as we go, we've got to take others with us. You know, one of the great assignments when you get inspired and you get revelation and God speaks to your heart and he does something that only he could do is when you transfer that and you deposit that and you hand that over to other people. And many of you have so many team members and you have other people that you're leading that you want to be able to leave here and be on go and take people with you along the journey. After these moments, I can remember when Delyn and I, when we had our first Easter, again, we were a small church and we had planted our church and we had Easter, and I think our first Easter, we planted that church and pastored it for 20 years. Our first Easter, we had 72 people and we'd been running a little over 30 people. And I remember just thinking, where did all these people come from? I mean, 72 people was massive when you start with that small number like we did. And when we got done, we went out to lunch. It was just me and her. We didn't have kids yet. And there wasn't a lot of team. We went to lunch and we sat at lunch and we talked about, well, this thing may work. We may actually become a church in this church plant. And the thought we had is what are the things that we've got to make sure we do right? We talked about prayer. We talked about worship. But one of the things that we discussed at lunch all those years later, and I see it continuing to happen among great churches, is let's make sure we build team. Let's make sure we take people along with us. We don't want to get to the summit. We don't want to arrive at any place and be the only one getting the trophies. But let's make sure everything we do is about building team and doing everything we can to do that as we go into these next chapters. And many of you feel like maybe you have received something during this time and God has deposited something in you. And I want to encourage you that as you go to the next summit, as you enter into this next year, this next chapter, this next season of reaping a harvest, this next season of building, of loving, of pastoring, we want to make sure that we take the team with us. That we're going to build something, and we've got to build everything we build and everything God puts in us to build. We want to build it around teams. Your strength lies in your team. We heard a little bit about that in the panel from Natasha. She did a great job talking a little bit about that. And we hear that statement, teamwork makes the dream work, but literally it's true. The dream will work if the team is working. I love what John Maxwell says also, that one is too small of a number to achieve any sort of kingdom greatness. And I want to talk about that for a few minutes around that idea of how do you leave in a moment like this when you feel like, man, I've recovered a little bit. I am going to breathe again. I am going to believe God for revival. And one of the greatest tasks that all of us have, that even though our expressions are different, and the outworking of the gift on our life as a volunteer or on a staff, the one thing for sure is that all of us need to give our life to developing greatness in others or building out greatness in a team. How do we leave here and make sure that happens? Because that'll be a difference in 12 months when we gather again. It's how well did we build team? And how well did we take the deposit of the Holy Spirit, the health of my soul, the things of God that I've gotten a hold of, and being able to navigate this storm and being able to move forward into this new season. How well did I relay that and transfer that to the others around me? Because we're going to be able to build. You just can't do it alone. If there's one thing I've learned is you can't do it alone. God's called us to gather and to take others and help them grow, and then also build a team. So we do launch trainings for all of our church planters. So we get together like you do. We train new church planters, and we have a playbook. It's an instruction guide of just, here are the things that you got to make sure you get right. You got to launch at a good location. You got to do your best to pick a pretty good Sunday. You just don't want to pick a bad Sunday. You want to make sure you got childcare. There are these basics that we teach, and over the years, a lot of that has been modified based on the world that we live in, that the way that you market and talk about who you are is a little different. The way that you communicate to people, to get new people, all of that has been morphed a little, been shifted a little. But do you know what's interesting to me? And I was sitting with our team that does a lot of the training of new churches, but also we have campus pastors that come in. We have existing pastors that come into these launch trainings because they're wanting to learn. But one of the things that I find so interesting when I look through the pages, there's one group of teachings that has not changed. And you know what that is? It's teamwork. And I don't believe we've modified it or edited it in about 15 years because it's a timeless truth. And I pulled out, this is the sheet out of the notebook. I actually pulled it out. I said, I just want to read this to you because it so applies to everything that we're about. When it comes out of this idea of this timeless and priceless truth of one of the biggest leadership challenges that we have is building team. That building team is ultimately about creating a way for people to contribute to making something extraordinary happen. We're just trying to figure out a way to get everybody to contribute in their gift and in the way they're shaped and their personality and their experiences and the way that God has wired them so that together we can do something extraordinary. So what does that look like? Well, you say, Dino, here's the problem. You hadn't seen my team. You hadn't been to my church. Dino, you don't know my team. You don't know how small it is. You don't know how busy they are. You don't know the tough group that I've been assigned to. You don't know you haven't seen my small choices. There's just not a lot of recruiting. I don't have a lot of recruits. I don't see a lot of potential. I see a lot of problems. And I'm not sure, but if I had Pastor Donovan and Shelley's team, whoo, man, I'd have me some revival in my city. If I had Pastor Chris's team, boy, man, and he and Pindy, if their leaders could be my leaders, wow, we could build something great. If I just had their team, if I had Pastor Paul and Marinette's worship team, oh man, if I just had their team, guess what? You don't have their team, you have yours. You're not going back, you're going back to your team. You're going back with the fire to your team. You're going back with the call to your team. You're going back fueled up to your team. You're going back inspired to your people. You're going back full of God to your assignment. Not my assignment, but to your assignment. And if I just had a different group of people, I just know the Lord is punishing me because he's assigned this worship team to me. Well, remember this, the people you have are the people that God called for you to have. You have the ones that God called you to have. You know the truth of the matter is, no one comes as a 10. Wouldn't you love if everybody came as a 10? Just walked in with like Bible college degrees. What all do you do? I play the keyboard. Oh, wow. What else do you do? I sing. What else? I'm independently wealthy. Okay. I have a family reunion of 8,000 people. And I have 4 or 5 vehicles. My children, all of our children, they sing. They're a singing group. Wow. Wouldn't it be great if everybody came as a 10? Here's the problem. You didn't come as a 10. Neither did I. You know, I can remember my first pastor. So I came to Christ through outreach. I got involved with a little beach church. And I showed up, and it was a little small church. And my first pastor was one of those angry preachers. You ever been around one of them angry preachers? The whole time he's preaching, you think, he don't like me. I don't know if he likes anybody. He's with them angry. Let me tell you something right now. Like, I think he wants to fight me in the foyer. He'd say things, if you don't like it, don't let the back door hit you in the backside. Go on and leave. There's 5 people waiting on your seat. There's about 8 of us in there, and I'd be like, well, can we go get them and get them up in here, because ain't nobody up in here. He literally would say stuff like that, but he was a good man. He was a confronter. He was the first one who ever confronted me about the tithe in the foyer of the church. Wasn't like in counseling, wasn't like in a small group. I'd been in the church for about 3 months, and he said, Brother Dino, call me Brother Dino, I'm 19 years old. Brother Dino, could you come see me? We're in the foyer. It's like 8 feet wide. Come over here and see me. Can we have a meeting? Everybody's in the foyer. And he didn't have an inside voice. He only had an outside voice. And he said, you've not been tithing. All my friends are like there. I was like, no, I've been giving. He said, you've been tipping, but you've not been tithing. My first pastor taught me the principle of the tithe in the foyer of the church. But he knew something I didn't know. And I look back at how I came. I did not come. I mean, I came as like a -6. How many of your team you feel like they're all in the minus? You ain't got them in the positive yet. I mean, I remember we did a passion play. I don't know if you've ever done a passion play at Easter. You do a drama. So we do a drama, our second Easter. Just trying to get somebody to come. Just hoping somebody will come out. And so we have one guy in the church who's got long hair. You're Jesus. This happened, Delaney, am I true? And he barely in the church. So, we do 2 showings. Okay, so we do the first one. We crucify Jesus. We get done in between service. The parking lot's pretty full. I think that's Easter. We broke 200. It was massive for us. And so in between service, I'm out in the parking lot waving. I look over there, Jesus standing on the side of the building smoking a cigarette. It's over. We'll have 72 next Easter. Because remember this. I want you to know this as you go back. I want to empower you. The right person doesn't exist. You make, you develop, you build, you sow, you invest. You help develop the greatness so that they become the person that God made them to be. That's our assignment. That's the fuel. That's the commission. We're commissioning you to go back and pour in to the team. I'll read you this scripture. I'm like, Pastor Chris, let me get to the word here so that y'all know that there's a scripture around this. It'd be important to know that. 1 Samuel 22, 1-2. And David left Gath and escaped to the cave of Adullam. When his brothers and his father's household heard about it, they went down to him. All those who were in distress, debt, and discontented gathered around him. This is amazing. He decided to become their commander. Sounds like a church launch. I think I'm going to lead this group of people that are just so discouraged. They're distressed. They're in debt. They're discontented. I'd love to lead you. I mean, it's an amazing. About 400 men were there with him. David is in trouble. He cries out to God. Look what and look who God sent him. People worse off than him. I mean, it's tough when you start a church or you start a work and you ain't got nothing, but you're the biggest tither in the church. Like you're the only one giving. I mean, these are so these people worse off than him. He becomes their leader, and all of them need counseling. Come on, all of them need mats. Every single one of them needs some time. They all need a freedom group. They flock to David. He becomes their captain. You think, my goodness, sometimes you think about what you're going back to or who you're riding back with, who you're on the plane with or in the van with. But look at David's team. Look who God gave him. But then we look at 2 Samuel chapter 23 and a few other verses, and it begins the list. And they're no longer called the ones that were discontent and the ones that were in debt and the ones that were distressed. Oh no, these are called David's mighty men. David's mighty men. And they begin to list the feats of these mighty men that raised. One of them raised up a spear. He was a chief of 3, raised up a spear against 800 men, and whom he killed in one encounter. The next one, Eleazar, what was he doing? He was there when the Philistines were taunting everybody, and everybody retreated. But Eleazar, he stood his ground and struck down the Philistines till his hand grew tired and froze to the sword. Think about that. He was so committed. He so gripped the word of God. He so gripped the work of God. He so gripped the mission of God, the battle of God, that he could not get his hand off the sword. I'm going to tell you right now, God can turn people's lives around. And I know right now they may not look like much, but God sees them, but not where they are, but where they can be. God sees potential. We sometimes see a problem. We see those that are discontented. We see those that are in debt. We see those that are discouraged. But God sees a mighty man and woman. And it boils down to, how do we see this and what do we do to develop that? Because that's the call God has for us. Is, Lord, help us to make that transformation and to be used to make that transformation. And all of a sudden, David and all these men, they overcame altogether. And so God gave David a group of people that were not going to change overnight. It took some years. And it took some time. And you know what I've learned in building team and in building great churches and watching those that have built great churches? They go the long game. There's no shortcut. There's just no shortcut in developing greatness in other people. And that's our assignment. Not just being committed to our own greatness, but are you more committed to developing greatness in others than you are your own life? I was talking about this recently with a group of pastors, and I was sharing about our goal is to pull out greatness in other people and to make sure that our commitment to building the greatness in others is as great or even greater than our commitment to seeing our own self become great. And one of the guys afterwards, he came up to me, he was so serious. He was one of the younger guys in the room, and God is blessing him. His church is growing. And he looked right at me. He said, well, if I'm doing all I can to make other people great, then who's going to make me great? And I sat there for a second. I think he was looking at me like, is that going to be your assignment now? And I said, could God not make you great? Could God not exalt you? Could God not elevate you? Could God not do great things like he's done? I think if you tend to the flock, he'll tend to you. I think if you put your emphasis and your focus in doing everything you can to see other people develop, and then you do all you can to keep yourself healthy and to keep yourself in environments of accountability, then could not God take you on as his project and see you excel and see you become all that he's wanted you? Has he not seen the potential? The heart and the assignment is to contribute. Lord, help me to contribute in a significant way to someone else's full-on success. Even success that will go beyond me. Let me be that pastor. Let me be that worship leader. Let me be that small group coordinator. Let me be that person that says, I'm going to give my life where I'm going to give something significant to the full-on success of someone else. That's going to be my heart. That's going to be my path. That's really what ARC is about. Thank God for the churches that we've planted in the existing churches, but it's existing churches and existing leaders that come together and said, could we together see some of the greatest churches ever planted? Could we lay aside our logo and lay aside our ego and see some of the greatest works to ever happen? And we know that we contributed in a small way, in just a significant way, to their full-on success. And we stand back and say, wow, look what the Lord has done. Could that not be something that we give our life to. You say, well, Dino, how do you take a band of thieves and see them turned into a tested, God-honoring, mighty man and woman? How do you do that? And because I believe that's the mission we chose to do. I wrote down 5 things. They're very practical, but I wanted to give these to you. These are 5. When just in my prayer time, I would say, I want to make sure I give you these 5 things that you can lock onto, these handles, as we talked about earlier today, these handles, these big difference makers. Here's the first thing to develop greatness in other people, which I believe is an assignment of ours as we leave here, is this: lead out of humility. Oh, it's so attractional. Humility is so attractional. Pride is so repulsive. Matter of fact, ego and pride repulses God. God will actually push us away. But humility, it's where all of a sudden that I realize in my life that the call and the gift of my life, that I can't do it by myself. I can't get it done by myself. So I'm okay doing it together. It's okay to say, I need other people. I need the team. I'm vulnerable enough to lead out of humility and know that I can only do so much by myself. So we lead out of humility, and we lead a humble life, and we carry ourselves that way. We thank God for the blessings, and we thank God for the honor, but we give it as much as we receive it. So how do you develop greatness in others? Is you lead out of that place of humility. Here's the second thing, is let people feel your support. I'm talking about feel your support. So you get at their level and you embrace them and you walk with them through those things. That's why it's so important in our small groups and spending time. I remember early on as a church, our time was busy, and I was cutting grass and doing yard work on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And Delyn was working a job, and I didn't have a lot of time due to my schedule. But I would meet with these men. I said, can you meet me early on Sunday? They would meet me early on Sunday. We would pray, do different things. And then there was a Sunday night that I led a Bible study for 10 weeks at a time in a different group. What was I doing? I was spending time, and I was letting them feel my support. Hey, how are you doing? What's going on? Pastoring them, being a part of it. I'll never forget, a businessman called me one day and said, I'm doing a businessman's Bible study on Wednesday morning. Can you come and teach it a few times? And I went there and began to teach his businessman's Bible study. I would always defer to him. I would always talk about him. 13 years later, I was still doing it because I wanted him to feel my support, because he was supporting us. So you let people feel your support. Here's the third one. Enlarge the world of the team. I just want to share. I want you to share in everything. It's easy. You compliment. Man, great job. Incredible. How many knows it's easy to compliment someone who doesn't do what you do? The real compliment and the real security is when you can compliment somebody who does what you do. You know, it's when you're in a service and someone preaches and you preach. And when they get off stage, you're able to say, that was incredible. You know, it's the worship leader that can look at the other worship leaders and say, I've never heard that song sung better in my life. It's the support team that looks at the other support team and says, wow, we've never pulled off an event like the way you pulled off the event. So you lead out of humility. You let people feel your support. You enlarge the world of the team. Here's the fourth thing. Live the I believe in you life. I believe in you. There was a great man that did a men's ministry several years ago, probably 20 years ago, called Promise Keepers. He was a college football coach. His name was Coach Bill McCartney, and he led this movement of men across the United States. And one time he came and he spoke for me, and I was very nervous and very humbled. And I remember he looked at me, and I couldn't believe, man, you're Bill McCartney. You've won a national championship. You filled stadiums of men. Everybody in the world wants to spend time with you. And I was sitting in the back, and you could sense just him leading out of humility. All these things I felt from him in just those few moments. I felt like he was supporting me. I felt like he was asking me, do you know this person? Have you been able to be a part of this? Well, let me get you. He was connecting me in those moments. But I'll never forget, he looked at me and said, man, I wish I had your job. I was like, my job? I wish I had your job. He said, no, you're a pastor. He said, you get to go around all the time. Your whole life is about going around telling people, I believe in you. I believe. He said, isn't that all you do? I was like, yeah, every day. That's all I do. But I was so inspired by that. Live the I believe in you life. And then the last thing, how to develop greatness in others, how to build great teams, so that the call and the revival and all the things that we've been deposited in by God Almighty is you don't give up on people. Don't give up on people. The best thing about what we do, I'm going to ask the worship team to come. Best thing about what we do is Him, Jesus. Our best thing about what we do is Him, and guess what? It's them. It's Him and them. I live for Him, and I live for them. I don't want to give up on people. And I run into too many pastors that have become cynical, and they don't love the people anymore. They love the ministry, but they don't love the people. They love some of the things about it, but they don't love the people. At the end of the day, don't give up on people. I know that they may have a different season. I know there are things that go on in their life. I know that things may change, but don't give up on people. And let's be the greatest encouragers of people. Man, I've been around that person. He's an encourager. You know, I found out that someone who embraces encouragement has longevity in the kingdom. You show me those that are discouraging, they don't have longevity in the kingdom. So Lord, help me to be the person. Help me to be the woman. Help me to be the man. Help me to be the leader. Help me to be the pastor. And the team around me, they realize, they know, they feel more love than they've ever felt in their life. If there's one thing our team knows, they are loved by me. That's what you want them to. They know I love them, and I'm supporting them, and I want to see greatness in their life. Because it's really not about making any other people famous other than Jesus. He's the only. It's around Him. We live our life that way. We live our life that way. So Father, help us to lead churches where we develop greatness in others. And people know that when they come to our church or they're on our team, man, this is a garden that's going to be tended well by leaders that want to see them develop into everything God has them. No matter how they come to us, when they've spent time with us, they're going to leave better because they've been with us as leaders who've been with the Lord. That's the commissioning of a conference like this, a gathering like this, is we leave. And I'm better, but I'm not just better for me, myself, and I. I'm better for us. I'm better for us. I'm going to be a better man. I'm going to be a better woman. I'm going to be a better leader so that I can deposit into the team. And those precious people that God has put in my care, that they know that they are loved, they are valued, they are seen, they are noticed, and they are cherished by someone who cares for their soul. And that's what I'm going to be. Can I have a good amen?